So what is resource management? The resource management module offers a very powerful applications that support the labor management efforts of resource managers as well as our project managers. Resource View assists the resource manager understand staffing needs. The project view gives the project manager a complete look at staffing and schedules for their projects. They can see at a glance who has too much work and who has too little. In Settings, in the Employee Hub and the Employment Details tab, you assign the employee's hours per day and their utilization target. These fields are used in resource management calculations. We're also going to look at a couple of other settings that pertain to resource management. First, the utilization threshold or billability. Use the utilization slide to determine if the employee is properly booked. In this example, if the employee's target utilization is 100%, the lower edge of that is going to be 95% and the upper is 105%. That's the range that is properly booked. You set this company by company, so if you think 90 to a 110 works better, but it's whatever is you're comfortable with. The next section is scheduled thresholds or availability. So if the employee is available for 40 hours a week and 40 is considered properly booked, their threshold is going to be 38 hours to 42 hours, and it's still considered properly booked. Just a note here, if you do have multi-company enabled, these settings apply to all companies. You have the option to turn on soft and hard booking. Soft is considered tentative, while hard is considered approved. Also on this tab in Settings is Available Search Fields. You'll use this area to make search fields available for Resource View searches. From the navigation pane, we'll go down to Resource Management, and there's three options that we're going to talk about today: Resource View, Project View, and Reporting. Resource View is created to be the center of activity for those who approach planning from an employee perspective or from a generic resource perspective. The normal workflow in Resource View focuses on your resources, either individually or in groups. Resource View is almost always forward-looking. Resource View search options. There's two independent search fields. In the top section, you choose either Deltek created searches or your own personal or shared saved searches. The bottom section allows you to create a search based on your own criteria. The Add Field option in the lower left corner allows you to add other standard fields as well as user-defined fields as search options. And this expansion here is one of the new features in 5.0. Another new feature in 5.0 is a project filter. You'll use this to select projects that will be displayed under the employee or resource. Any projects excluded with this project filter will be combined into a single read-only row. Using this filter does not affect the values on the employee or generic resource rows. The forecast range. If you click here, you can select between days, weeks, or months. You're only allowed to select dates after the JTD date or job to date date. In the top right under Show Capacity, there's three options. The first option is Planned Hours. Planned hours display for whatever your selected forecast range is. Generic resources can only be displayed by the Planned Hours option. Scheduled percent is the second option. Blue indicates underutilized, red indicates overutilized, and gray indicates properly utilized. Scheduled hours are planned hours for overhead projects, promotional projects, regular awarded projects, and any in-pursuit projects that meet the criteria for inclusion. Utilization percent is the third option. Billable hours are planned hours for regular awarded projects and any in-pursuit projects that meet the criteria. The Actions drop-down in the top right has two options. Check-in plans. You'll use this option to check in one or more plans that are currently checked out. Print report. You can use this option to open resource planning reports that are found under My Stuff and Reporting. On the action bar, you will have the option to pin selected resources if you need to do multiple searches and want to retain the resources from one search to another. And at the far right, you can see the number of resources that you have pinned. You can click on Add Assignments to add hours to be worked on a project, and generic resources can also be assigned hours. Save as Search allows you to assemble a team of resources and save as a saved search so they can easily be displayed in the future. Resource View has three sections in its grid. The left grid section shows the resources returned by your search as you defined it in the Find Resources search pane. And also it will indicate the work breakdown structure levels each resource has been assigned to. By using the gear at the top right, you can determine which columns you want to see in the middle grid. The right grid section displays ETC, or Estimate to Complete hours, for the forecast range and calendar periods you've selected. You can add or change the estimate to complete hours per employee row. You can only change labor. Remember, you're updating an employee or a resource, not the entire plan. An alternative to entering planned hours period by period is to enter the sum of hours for a range of dates and let Vantagepoint allocate those hours across the periods. Then you can make any necessary changes to fine-tune your plan. Any changes made in Resource View or Project View will also update the project plan. If you click on an employee name, you can view information about that employee. This will display their profile, their skills and credentials, all assignments that have planned hours remaining, as well as their current and past projects that they've worked on, including their job-to-date hours charged to each of those projects. The vertical ellipse at the end of an employee or resource row has three options: reschedule, reassign, and delete. Under reschedule, there's a couple of options. You can use Shift to change the start date of the plan. It pushes the row plus any child rows forwards or backwards while maintaining the same number of workdays and planned hours distribution. You can use the change duration to shorten or lengthen dates. Check this box to replace child dates if they were aligned to start with. Reassign the entire assignment or a percentage of the assignment. When using Assign To, check the scheduled percent to see how much the employee is already scheduled in the selected period range. click on the employee's name for additional information to see whether the resource is a good fit or not. Using the vertical ellipse, click on Add Assignment to add resources to one or more work breakdown structure elements. This feature enables you to quickly get a plan started by assigning a group of resources to a project all at once. You cannot delete a row if there are job-to-date hours or baseline hours on it. However, you can always delete planned hours. In the assignment grid, the ETC hours are planned hours for dates in the assignment range beginning the day after the JTD date. Now let's talk about the project view. Resource view and project view share the same planning data and many of the same capabilities. They just provide different ways of working with the data. Project view is designed with the project manager in mind and projects as the focus. In project view, you can change both plan and labor assignment dates and monitor assignments on published plans. A note here, only hours will show. There's no associated cost or billing amounts. Click on the plus on a structure or WBS row to add a new resource. The vertical ellipse at the end of the row displays when you hover over it. Click to select from several actions: assign resources, add notes, reschedule, and we're going to look at each one of those. So using the Assign Resources option, you can assign resources to the selected work breakdown structure element or to other work breakdown structure elements below the selected row. This is not an option available on any employee or resource rows. The scheduled percent displays so you can see what is already scheduled for each person for the period range. If a row has a note, you will see the notes icon. You can click on the icon to add additional notes or view and make changes to existing notes. The reschedule options presented in Project View are exactly the same as those we talked about in Resource View. Work in the project view to review resource assignments and schedules for each of your projects. Assign employees and generic resources. Enter planned hours for those assignments. Reassign work from one resource to another. And reschedule planned hours. Use the Project Lookup field to click on an existing search, or you can create a new search. These saved search options are the same as those available in the Project Hub. If you use the Days and Months option, your daily amounts will show for 1 or 2 months, and then the remaining time will display in months. You can also use your icon to select weeks or months. Under Actions, there's 3 choices. Check in plans. Click here to check in one or more of the plans currently checked out. Open in Projects. Display data for the currently selected project open in Project View. Print Report. Use this option to display reporting. You can then generate a resource planning report or any other report available to your security role. When you open a project in Project View, it automatically checks the plan out to you. However, Vantagepoint will not check it out if someone else has it checked out or if there are unpublished changes on that plan. If you open another project or leave project view, your changes will automatically be published. Project view also has 3 sections on the grid. The left grid is the section that displays the work breakdown elements at each level of the plan for the selected project. The resources for the project are always displayed at the lowest level. The columns shown here can be used in the middle grid. The right grid section displays planned hours by calendar period. Now let's look at resource management. From the menu, the resource management menu, you select reporting, which is the 3rd option down. And then you have a drop-down list to choose to run your report by projects or by resources. Resource view reports only include hours. You can use a saved search or create a new search. The resource report searches are the same as resource view searches. The project view calendar scale allows you to look in the past or in the future. Now let's open up Vantagepoint and take a look at the processes and options available in resource management. So we're going down the navigation tree to resource management, and we're going to start out with resource view. I first want to talk about the searches. As I mentioned earlier, Add New Field has some new options available in 5.0. And the very top one are the saved searches. So these are Deltek searches at the top. There's a dividing line, and then these are going to be your personal or shared searches. You can always add to that and add personal or shared searches. So I'm going to clear part of my search and leave employees and active. And I'm just going to click search, and I'll get all of my active employees and see the heat map for their availability. You can create your own search using supervisor, organization, category, but I want you to notice on skills and credentials that you have advanced search options here. And we're going to do a search using one of those in just a moment. But you can click on Add Field to add any standard or user-defined field under your projects. If you start a search and you're not happy with it, you can completely clear everything. If you have a search that you're really crazy about, you can save it by clicking Save it as a new search, and name it. And this is where you determine who will be able to see it. Is it personal, or will you add other roles to it? So for my search that I'm going to use for the demo today, I'm going to click on Skills and Set Details. So if I add a skill, I'm going to select Architect, and I'm going to choose the level. I want 6 to 10 years of experience. So I'm going to set that, and you notice nothing changed. I do still have my employees only, and they're active, but I've added to that, so I've got to click search again. So it did shorten my list, but all of these people now have 6 to 10 years of architecture experience. I can set my date range here for what I want to see on the right grid. And another new feature in 5.0 is this project filter right here. So I'm going to click on that and clear it. And then we're going to come in and have active projects. And we want regular charge type. And I want it to be project manager is me. Now I could go through and find myself in the employee list, of course, but Deltek has provided the special selections here at the top, and is me, as as the project manager is one of the saved options there. So I'm going to apply that. And now when I click on my resources, you'll notice that they have some available and then some have been consolidated into this read-only row. I can't do anything with this. There's no option here at the far right, but if I go up a row, I still have my option to add assignments, reschedule, reassign, or delete. I also can go up to the resource actual row and add assignments there. So I have that available in two places. This consolidated row that everything excluded by the filter is going to be all of the hours that are outside these two that we can work on. You'll notice here I have two check marks. That means these plans are checked out. So if I go to Actions and try to check in the plans, and I can check in the plan, and then now I can make changes to these plans. If they had been checked out by someone else, or if they had unsaved or unpublished changes, I would not have been able to check them in.
Nitra,
Yes.
just while you're on this screen, could you tell us the difference between the scheduled percentage and the utilization percentage, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
So in the center grid, as well as the show capacity up here, we have the planned hours, but the scheduled hours are their availability. The utilization is their billability. So they may be the same number. It looks like mine are, even though their targets, I've got different target ratios. But very often, scheduled percentage and utilization is different. But that's how Deltek defines that, is scheduled percent is availability and utilization percent is billability, which is going to be, as I mentioned on one of the slides, where that is calculated from. The scheduled is going to be for planned hours for projects that are awarded, in pursuit, even overhead projects if they're scheduled for that. And then the utilization are going to be what they are planned for on billable projects or awarded projects. You can add other columns if you want to use that rather than seeing the amount here with this gear right here. You can adjust your middle grid. Any other questions on Resource View before we move to Project View?
No, but thank you so much.
Okay, so now we're going to Resource Management and Project View. So Project View, I'm going to select a search here, and the one I want is name contains Benson. And I've got 3 projects, and I want to be able to scroll through all 3 of those. So in this, I'm able to click on the different phases, and I can see my resources. I have the option to change dates. So if I needed to change Annie's assignment end date from 2019, I could do that. I can also come in and I get an error message when I click my vertical ellipse there that this plan is checked, it's not checked out, but I'm unable to work on it because it has unpublished changes. And I can see who the project manager is if I want to contact Adrian and see if he can publish that, or if I can go publish the changes so that I can work on it. If I click on one of these others, and on any of these, I do have the option to go in, change the date right here, because it doesn't have unsaved changes or unpublished changes, and it's not checked out to someone else. I can also not only change the date, but I can add estimate to complete hours. Anything that is changed here will change the plan. So it will move the date out for Herman, and I moved it out for Glenn. And it will also include the new ETC hours that they have for that new date range. Under Actions, you can check in plans, open in projects, or print report. Now this opens up the same options for reporting, the options under My Stuff and reporting. And it is a pop-up box. It doesn't take you out of project view if you click on that. I'm not going to do it because it kind of loads slowly, but it will open that pop-up box right here, and then you can look at the report and then go right back to project view. I can also open it up in the project hub if I need to check something out that I can't see here. I can go into project details and take a look at anything I need to see there. Another thing you can do in project view, if you set your scale here, and I have mine set in weeks, but I can scroll through different weeks. So I don't have to just change my scale every time with different starting dates. So I do have the option to move back and forth with that. Okay, now let's finish up with the resource management report. So all of the reports I've been talking about before are these reports up here under My Stuff. This is a resource management report only. And once you open the report up, you have the option here to choose whether you want to see it by project or by resource. And I do have a saved report that we're going to take a look at. It shows me my project manager is how my report is sorted. And I can rename the report, I can delete the report, and I can even create a new report and save it with this option right here. I can change the forecast range on my report. And then I have the normal report options here to maximize it, to change the columns, export it to a CSV file, or use a filter. So maybe I want to export it, but first I only want to see those that have job to date hours over 700. And then I could export this shortened version of my report. We can also have reports by resources. And this is a search here. It's not a saved report. And you have all of your different options for changing your search. Create a custom search here. And you can also save searches. So I do have one report here that is by resources, resources by project. Again, I can rename or delete the report, make changes to it, and save it as a new report. And then I've got my same options to export it if I choose to do that or use my filter. So that concludes my demo, and I'm happy to take any other questions.
Nidra, related to the filters, can you clear out dormant projects from your selection?
Yes, you can. You can choose under status to have active, inactive, or dormant. So if you wanted to clear that out, you can remove the dormant, and sometimes it's important to leave the inactive in there because that person may have left your company and they have hours in plans that need to be reassigned. So that inactive can come into play very often in planning and resource management.
Excellent. When you set up a filter, can you push that filter to everyone's view?
The filter is just for yours on the screen. Now, if you download it to a CSV file, yes, you can. they can see the results of your filter, but you can't push the filters out.
You can't save them and share them with other people?
I
Like a
could,
save
if I,
search?
yes, I could do a saved search with the filter, yes.
Okay. Um, are milestones available in the resource view?
They are not.
Okay. And can you show how a project manager might view all plan versus actual time within a project view?
In project view. Okay, and show, would you repeat the question?
Can you show how a project manager would view all the plan versus the actual time within a project view?
So we have our job to date hours and our ETC hours and EAC hours in this grid. So we would be able to see it. However, you can only see one project at a time in project view, unlike resource view, where you can see everything you select. You can see that job to date, the planned amount, and the estimate at completion, but you can't see all projects and just scroll through them. You can scroll through them, but not with this scroll bar. You have to click through them here. It's one project at a time.
So where is the view where I can see by resource and by time period for that resource, the planned and the actual? So maybe it's in the actual plan to see the rows within it.
So in project view, I can see my resources assigned to each level and see their actual and their planned.
But if I want to see them in the column, the time period columns to the right, the third grid.
The third grid, okay. Let me move that assignment date out. Well, we don't need to see the vacation project. That's not a good option. And that doesn't seem to have anything. Let's see if we've got. Oh,
I don't think you can do it here, don't you? I think you have to do it in
no.
the plan, not project view. So maybe that's the hang up we're having.
Yes.
I think the user did ask about project view, but it's in plan view, not in project view, I believe, just to distinguish that.
Yeah, definitely it's in plan
Okay,
on the labor tab. Right
there you
here.
go. Yes,
Yep.
precisely. So there's a difference between the views, right?
Yes, there is a difference.
What does it mean to check in and check out a plan?
It's like going to the library. If you want to read a book, you have to check it out. If you want to work on a plan, you have to check it out. And then when you're through and you leave, it will automatically check it back in, or you can go in under other actions and check in the plans. And other actions in the resource view and the project view, you can check in plans. And with those two exceptions, if somebody else has it checked out and they're working on it, you're not allowed to have two people working on a plan at the same time. Or if there's unpublished changes that have been made to a plan, you can't override that and check it out unless you go in and save the changes or publish them.
And so for overhead projects, we haven't used plans for them. Do they look similar to billable projects if we were to plan overhead projects?
Yes, they look exactly the same. The charge type doesn't impact this. You'll still see job to date hours put to the overhead project. If you created a company vacation plan, you'd still see job to date hours and planned hours. It really doesn't, the charge type doesn't impact the plan.
Great, thank you. For the capacity calculation that shows up in the summary pane on projects, what is the point of that if all projects show up in the resource view?
In the center grid or in the,
Well, so the if you go back one in the project hub in the summary pane, the capacity calculation shows.
oh, I'm sorry, to the resource view
Nope,
and the capacity. Was I in the right place?
you were in the right place. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And in your summary pane,
Mm-hmm.
the
Right here.
capacity calculation, it says included and scheduled.
Well, that just is part of the inclusion ability that you have to include. This is a promotional project,
Mm-hmm.
and they do want it included in the calculation for resource management.
So it's the math factor. If I wanted in the math factor, regardless of if the project is visibly shows up in resource
Right.
view, it's the math.
So this is just a yes or no thing. Include it or don't include it. It's, yeah, it won't show a number there for the capacity.
Okay, great. Can you show where in the settings again we can set what is it, the ranges for what shows red versus green?
Yes.
Forget what it's called in the resource settings. Thank you.
Resource planning and then resource settings.
Oh, it's literally called resource settings. Look at that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then the top one is your billability. That's going to be really focusing on awarded projects and any promotional projects that you want included in that. And this can include overhead projects, promotional projects, billable projects, and in pursuit projects.
Great, thank you. Do you have any examples of soft time versus hard time? Or recommendations on using the two?
I find that that is used most often for companies that have a resource manager, and the project manager will go in and put what they want on their plan, and then it goes in for approval to the resource manager, and they change it from soft to hard booked assignments. And you also have the option in resource view to add that to your grid as a column. You can have the booking so that you can see if that has been soft booked or hard booked.
Can I change those colors?
I do not know of a place you can change the colors.
I
And
don't either, but I'd like to.
yeah,
They're terrible.
well, I like the gray better than I like the pink that we used to have there. So
I agree, but everything is gray, so it feels like
true.
gray is gray. Gray is very
Hmm.
popular nowadays.
They
Can
are.
you can you set permissions to allow a master override to publish a plan?
If you have access to the plan, you can go in and publish. You can't publish from in resource view or resource management. You have to go into the plan to publish it. Now, if you have some kind of restrictions on the security role that you can only see plans for your project manager, then you would only be able to publish yours. If you don't have those restrictions, you can go into anyone's plan, make changes, and publish them. if you have full access. But that's determined in your security role. And I guess the administrator or the resource manager or someone could be designated as someone that has full access to every plan. But again, it would be determined in security.
Great, thank you. I think that is most of the questions. I tried to get through all of them. I don't know, Miss Liz, did I miss any?
I think you got them all.
Great job, Ninja.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you. And if any were missed, we will be following up. So I just want to thank everyone for joining. Nidra, Hillary, thank you both so much. If you'd like to receive a copy of today's recording, please feel free to contact me. Again, my name is Liz Sidney. My contact information is in the chat. I will send it to you as soon as possible. And like I said, Nidra and Hillary will be in touch and following up. So if you do have any additional questions, please ask them. At the end of this webinar session, there's going to be a survey pop-up on your browser window. Please fill that out. Your feedback is very important to us. And again, any immediate questions, please reach out to Nidra or myself or Hillary. And just thank you everyone again, and thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.